Nintendo consoles, the best of the best. They're iconic, nostalgic, and the games are one of a kind. Everyone always talks about the 10 out of 10 launch titles for these consoles. Super Mario Bros. For the NES, Wii Sports for the Wii, Zelda Breath of the Wild for the Switch, the list goes on and on. But nobody ever talks about the final game released on each console years after the console first released. Did Nintendo decide to go out with a bang, or did some third-party developer release a money-grabbing pile of slop to cash in on the end of an era? Today, I'll be showing you the final game released for every Nintendo console, which includes the handhelds. If you enjoy the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get into it. Before we get into the very well-known Nintendo consoles, there are two very early consoles we should address that I decided not to play. This would be the Color TV game system released in 1977 and the Game & Watch handheld systems released in 1980. There were a couple of reasons I decided not to play the final games on these systems. A, it would be difficult for me to record footage on such an old game, and B, each console only came with one game, so technically the final game was the final console. For anyone saying I'm making excuses, you're right. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's move on to a certified nerd classic, the NES. This console debuted on July 15th, 1983 with classics such as Mario Bros., Duck Hunt, and Excitebike. Nearly 10 years later, on February 19th, 1994, Nintendo dropped its final game for the NES titled Wario Woods. This is a puzzle game pretty similar to Tetris because, well, Tetris ruled the gaming scene back then. But instead of controlling the falling blocks, you control Toad, who has to rearrange colored bombs and blow up these weirdly strange, delicious-looking creatures. Like, why do they look gummy, and why do they look like they're happy to be blown up? Once all the creatures are brutally massacred, you beat the level and move on. I know this game has Wario in the title, but he really doesn't have much to do with this game besides just being a nuisance for 30 seconds each level. Shoot, Birdo is more prevalent in this game than he is. Basically, he just randomly appears, changes the music, drops some bombs faster, and shortens the screen a bit. From what I saw, he didn't make the levels much more difficult. And I know Wario is a bit more on the heftier side, but man, this angle does not look great on him. He looking at Toad like a snack. But yeah, this was fun, but I'm not the biggest into puzzle games. Moving on to a more painful puzzle game, we have 3D Tetris on the Virtual Boy. I've never played any game on the Virtual Boy before, but this was not a good first experience. To be fair, I don't know if there's any good experience on the Virtual Boy. Nonetheless, this game was released on March 22nd, 1996, just 1 year after the Virtual Boy was released in 1995. Yup, this console's lifespan was only 1 year long, and I see why. Continuing the Tetris crave, Nintendo turned it 3D with a bunch of red lines and a void of black emptiness in the background. Oh yeah, and there's friendly yet sinister cubes on the left, watching your every move. Obviously, being Tetris, you have to line the blocks up on the floor, filling up all the space, therefore clearing the floor. It can be a bit tough trying to understand what's going on at first, but you do get used to it. Technically, the game does work how it's supposed to, but it's just not it. I know I might be a little biased against puzzle games, but the frames are terrible, the lack of color is unappealing to look at, the puzzle is always unnecessarily moving, and I was low-key getting nauseous playing this, and I'm not even playing on an actual Virtual Boy. And not to mention how boring this game is. Nothing about this screamed entertaining to me, so yeah. To finish off the end of the Super Nintendo, the final North American release for the system was Frogger. This game was released in 1996, 6 years after the SNES was released. This game was actually a remaster of the original arcade game released back in 1981 for the Atari 2600. After playing this game, I now understand why this game is referenced today and why other games have followed the same format. It's actually kind of addicting, despite how bad I am at it. If you're unaware of Frogger, it's pretty simple. You're a frog who has to hop to the end of the level while avoiding obstacles. Once you get to the end, you must do this 4 more times to beat the level. The controls are really fun, and the sound effects for this game are great. But I underestimated how hard this game is. I tried for like half an hour trying to get all my frogs across the street without getting splatted by a family of 4 or drowning, even though I'm a frog. After finally getting all my frogs to the goal, I was ready for the next level. Turns out it's the exact same level but with an added obstacle. I was kinda expecting a change of scenery and a bunch of different obstacles, but I get it. The original game was made in 1981, so I'll cut it some slack. Oh, you thought we were done with the Super Nintendo? Nope, because there was another final game released for the console exclusive to Japan on the Super Famicom, which is just the Japanese SNES. This was Metal Slayer Glory Director's Cut released in 2000. Now I know technically this was the final game released for the SNES, but I wanted to cover everything, so I'll do this quite a few times later in this video. Unfortunately, I can't read Japanese, but I thought through the gameplay I could kinda get a general understanding of the game. Well, not in this game. From what I can tell, this game is all dialogue, nothing but story. I was just pressing buttons to skip the dialogue, but soon realized this was the entire game. A quick look on Wikipedia tells me the story sounds really interesting, so it's a shame I can't understand a word of it. Now we move on to our first handheld, the original Game Boy. The final game for this system is a banger, Pokemon Yellow version Special Pikachu Edition, released on October 19th, 1999, 10 years after the Game Boy was released in 1989. Now you'll have to excuse me for my lack of Pokemon knowledge. The only other Pokemon game I ever played was Let's Go Pikachu on the Switch, which I really enjoyed, but others didn't. I didn't know what I was expecting loading this up, but I got hooked fast. I know some of the newer gen gamers may find this hard to play because of the lack of detail and color, but wow, I understand now why Pokemon was such a huge craze and still is. I actually really enjoyed how this game looks. From the art style to the Pokemon to the music, the best word I could use to describe it is cute. Now it can be a little difficult determining where to go and what to do, but I'm okay with that. It gives me a bit of a challenge and a reason to explore. Once I got Pikachu by my side and battled my first Pokemon, I knew this was the first of many Pokemon games I'd be playing. But holy crap, I don't know if it's because how I'm playing this game or this is how it was originally programmed, but can someone turn down the Pokemon noises? I made it as far as Viridian Forest, and then I got lost because this place is a maze, literally. And because I had to sift through a bunch of grass, I swear I faced 100 Metapods. I officially want to spike this thing into the ground just out of spite. Once again, the Game Boy had another final release exclusive to Japan. That game is Shikaki Otama o Makaru Saru Kanji no Tatsujin. I 100% butchered that. This game was released on March 30th, 2001. Very similar to the last Japanese game I played, I had no idea what the hell was going on, way more so than the last game. I think I got overstimulated with me spamming buttons, a bunch of Japanese characters popping up, and constantly getting X's. Apparently in this game, players simulate playing a taiko drum in time with music. I honestly thought it was a word learning game for children. Oops. Ooh, baby, do we got a banger here. The final game released for the N64 was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, released on May 3rd, 2002, almost 6 years after the N64 was released in 1996. This game was critically acclaimed, and for good reason too. I remember playing this game back in the day with my uncles when I was little, and yeah, I'm just as bad as I was back then. But that doesn't matter because this game is fun no matter how good you are. First of all, the soundtrack. A lot of these songs are iconic, and something about them just sounds so nostalgic, and I didn't even grow up playing this game. Absolutely shredding the board in the air while hitting the craziest tricks felt awesome and was so satisfying, even though I landed on my head half the time. I was actually surprised to see that there was a career mode too. In this mode, you have a limited amount of time to do a number of tasks that will allow you to unlock more levels to play. But because I'm so dog dookie, I could not get enough challenges done to unlock the next level, so I got stuck just playing Factory. But that's okay, I still had a lot of fun, I just need to get better. Now we have the second version of the Game Boy, the Color, and the final game released for it was actually really fun, which I was not expecting. That game is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, released on November 15th, 2002, 4 years after the system was released in 1998. It's an RPG-style game that takes you through the entire movie plus much more. The graphics and art style is amazing. It's got that perfect, fun retro look. What I really love about this game is all the extra stuff you can do and unlock. There are mini games throughout the story that are super goofy and entertaining, different dialogues and cutscenes that weren't in the movies, and loads of different shops you can purchase things from. Even though the game is 32-bit, walking through Diagon Alley is truly magical. Being an RPG, combat is a huge part of this game. Obviously, Harry doesn't encounter many enemies in this movie, especially in the beginning, so they were forced to get a bit creative with their enemies, which I think was a great move. I mean, I'm fighting fans, toasters, suits of armor, it's awesome. When fighting, Harry has a list of spells he can use. Each enemy has a specific weakness or immunity to these spells. Once you progress, you can add more people to your party that offer different abilities, like Ron's rat that did absolutely nothing. I did want to play more, but I got to this suit of armor I had to fight, got whooped, my game froze, and I lost all my progress. But I'd do it all again, just not today. Once again, we have another Japanese release, Doraemon no Steady Boy, Kanji Yomakaki Master, and once again, I have no damn clue what was happening. I don't even know what to say anymore. I'm spamming buttons trying to read a language that makes no sense. I couldn't find anything online about what this game is about or what the objective is, so yeah, that's that. Now we're on to one of my favorite consoles, the GameCube. The final North American game released on this system was Madden 2008, released on August 14th, 2007, 6 years after the GameCube was released. These were the good old days of Madden. No microtransactions, no toxic community, just pure goofy fun football. Yeah, there are some broken mechanics, but that's what makes it so fun. What they released is what we got permanently. No patches, no updates, nothing. It was perfect. I love football, but I know nothing about the plays and stuff, so I basically just did what Madden suggested every time. On defense, I basically just picked a lineman and tried to sack the quarterback, which was actually really fun. I think I tried to play a corner to try to intercept the ball, but I would leave the receiver more free than a dead hooker, so I wasn't doing this again. Offense is really fun, but golly, can my receivers wipe off the vegetable oil lathered on their hands? They dropped the ball so many times, I was going to punt kick each and every last one of them. After always going for it on 4th down, losing yard after yard, somehow I was able to score a touchdown after they scored one. The score is 10-7, 3 minutes left on the clock in the 4th quarter. All I had to do was score a field goal to tie up the game. Bam, it's up, and it's short. I want to slam my fist through a silverback gorilla. The final game released in Europe for the GameCube was Ratatouille, released in 2007. Usually these movie video games are pretty awful, but they will always have a soft spot in my heart. They're just so charming, even if they can be pretty repetitive. And plus, Ratatouille is a great movie. I love rats chefing it up in the kitchen. Similar to the Harry Potter game, this game takes you through the movie as well. You play as Remy traversing through Paris, collecting apple cores and other collectibles while whipping up some delectable food. For a movie game that is most likely just a cash grab, this game has a surprising amount of mechanics. I mean, the tutorial alone took me like 30 minutes to complete because there were so many different things to learn, which is crazy for a children's game. You can double jump, swim, move items, sneak around using boxes, smack things, and so much more. And if you got beef with cute little baby chicks, well, you can demolish them into atoms. There are also fun little mini games you can play along the way as well, like sliding down a giant sewer pipe or pressing the right buttons to cook food. If you've never seen the movie, well, you can pretty much watch the entire thing through just the cutscenes. The final game released for the Game Boy Advance was Samurai Deeper Kaio on February 12, 2008, almost 7 years after the system was released in 2001. This was another Japanese release, but unlike the other Japanese games, I kinda understood what was going on and had a pretty good idea of what to do. Obviously, I still can't read the dialogue, so I couldn't tell you anything about the plot, but the game is a top-down scroller where you have to use some sick-ass samurai skills to defeat your enemies. I actually had a lot of fun with this. Before entering a level, you could choose from a variety of characters that have different weapons and movesets, as well as ultimates. These are super unique, and it was really fun experimenting with all the different characters. The combat felt really satisfying. Once you fill the blue bar up, you can use your ultimate where you get this really sick like anime cutscene and you absolutely destroy everything around you. It's a really fun game, however I kept getting to this boss called Jamon, which kind of sounds like Michael Jackson, and I would get him down to half health every time, then after that none of my moves would weaken him any further. I tried everything with almost all the characters and I could not move past him. I mean, maybe if I could read Japanese I could understand what to do. Now we move on to the original DS with its final game being Big Hero 6 Battle in the Bay, released on October 28, 2014, 10 years after the system was released in 2004. Look, I know I said that movie video games had a soft spot in my heart, but holy crap, this game is a pile of crap. This was definitely one of the most boring games I've ever played. I take 3D Tetris on the Virtual Boy every time. I don't remember much from the movie because it was so long ago, but it doesn't matter. I mean, the game looks crappy. I know it was released on the original DS, so the graphics aren't going to be the best for any game, but I mean, come on, there are loads of other DS games that look 10 times better than this. And if for some reason you do decide to play this game, turn down your audio because the music gets old and annoying fast. But yeah, this game is just so boring. You do the same thing through every level, running and beating up the same enemies. Yeah, you play as different characters with different abilities, but that's the only variety this game adds. And that's pretty much the entire game. There's not much else to say about it. If I had to choose between life and prison in beating this game, lock me up and label me a criminal. Now the final game on the DSi, I didn't get to actually play because I could not for the life of me get this game to work. But from what I can tell, I'm not missing much. I mean, as far as puzzle games go, this one doesn't look bad, but like I mentioned before, I'm not the biggest fan of puzzle games. This game was released in 2016, about 7 years after the DSi was released. You basically just have to direct each train to its correctly colored destination by adjusting the direction of the track. Naturally, like most puzzle games, the levels get harder and harder as you progress. I feel like this game wouldn't be too bad if you were semi-focused on something else, like watching something on the TV. Now it's time to put my peak athletic performance to the test with the final game released on the Wii, Just Dance 2020. This game was released in 2019, 13 years after the Wii was released in 2006. That is over a decade. I don't know about you, but I was not aware that they made Wii games for this long. I played this game before on my channel for a different video, but who the hell does this game think I am? Do they really expect me to pull off some of the most diabolical dance moves I've ever seen? Nonetheless, if you actually want to get a workout in and have fun busting it down, this game is a great choice. The song choices are decent, being more mainstream songs spread out across various genres. But there are a couple of cursed ones. In honor of the internet brain rot, my first dance had to be Skibbity. And yeah, these are the dance moves I fully expected from a song titled Skibbity. Honest to God, I thought I was tripping balls for 3 minutes straight. For a slightly more serious dance, I chose Bad Guy by Billie Eilish. Though I obviously can't play the song due to copyright, the dance moves actually fit the song really well, even though I looked like a complete idiot doing them. Solid 7 out of 10 game. Staying on the Wii, we now have the final release for the system in Europe, which is Shakedown Hawaii, released in July of 2020. 2020, people. A game was actually released for the Wii just 4 years ago. Absolute madness. I had no knowledge of this game before, but man, this quickly became one of my favorite games I've played this video. I was pleasantly surprised. It's pretty much a retro top-down Grand Theft Auto. You play as an old gangster who was just recently released from prison. From doing various heinous and goofy missions, robbing innocent bystanders and convenience store owners, and purchasing tons of businesses around Hawaii, you must rebuild your empire you once had. If you ever longed for a more arcadey version of GTA, this is your game. There is so much packed into this game, it's insane. You can hijack cars, force gas station owners to pay you protection money, go on a rampage with loads of different weapons, and try your absolute best to try to lose the cops, and so much more. And there's actually a very detailed storyline with sick animated cutscenes. A lot of them are actually pretty hilarious too. Not to mention there are tons of things to buy, like weapons, cars, disguises, hairstyles, hats, etc. I can't lie, I got pretty addicted to playing this. Now the final release on the 3DS is another I was unable to play, and I'm actually glad I wasn't able to because this game looks like poo-poo. It was released in 2021, 11 years after the 3DS was released in 2010 for North American countries. I mean, this game is pretty much a mobile game you play like once or twice and instantly get bored of, so you decide to never touch the game and end up deleting it months later. You control an axe through a continuous side-scrolling level, cutting down trees and collecting coins. That's literally it. I guess you can buy better axes with your coins and sharpen them to make it more efficient, but I don't think there's anything in this world that can make me interested in this game. The true final games released on the same day for 3DS was Silver Falls Gaiden Deathly Delusion Destroyers and Silver Falls Ruby River. These games look a lot more promising than the last game. Released in 2023, both games appear to take full advantage of what the 3DS is capable of. Though they both have Silver Falls in the title, both games are very different from each other. Ruby River is very similar to Minecraft and Rust, being a survival game where you can build a base, hunt animals, slay enemies, and harvest materials. For a 3DS game, this looks pretty incredible, and there are a lot of mechanics you must be aware of in order to survive, like weather hazards, armor, and cooking. Plus, this game was under $20 on release. If I was taking a trip somewhere, this would definitely be a cop. Gaiden Deathly Delusion is an RPG-style game where you hold the 3DS sideways and fight various monsters as a group of 4 players. This is a much more story-oriented game. Obviously, being an RPG, there's a lot of mechanics like crafting and items that are included in this game that will help you along the way. It's not exactly my cup of tea, but hey, it might be yours. Now, let me introduce you to one of the crappiest games I have ever seen on the 3DS, maybe even the crappiest of all time, Soccer Shootout. This was the final game released for the new 3DS in 2021, and I mean this game is absolute horse turd. I don't even know what to say about it. To be fair, it did only cost 8 cents on the store, which is absolutely bizarre. Why even charge us money at that point? Look, there is no commentary to add here. You're a being that has to glide the ball past a goalkeeper that only has one move. Once you score or miss, you do the exact same thing again. There's no other players, no animations, no variability, no cool mechanics, nothing. It is just a pile of slop that needs to be burned in hell. The last Nintendo console we'll be talking about is the Wii U, because as of making this video, the Nintendo Switch is still releasing more games. The final game released for the Wii U was Stormfront: The Mutant War, UREL edition in 2021, 9 years after the console was released in 2012. Again, I don't know what I was expecting, but I had a lot of fun. It's a twin-stick arcade shooter where you play as a character that is dedicated to killing all the mutants in the world. This is a very chaotic game. The second you load into a level, you're bombarded with disgusting mutant characters and hardcore music. You collect upgrades for your weapon to help progress through the level, and you have to use your flamethrower to destroy the enemy spawners. Once you start shooting, you don't stop. Once you get farther into the levels, the enemies get harder and projectiles start flying, so you really gotta pay attention and channel your inner Neo. But don't worry, there are special weapons you can pick up that can deal massive damage. I did really enjoy playing this game despite it being pretty difficult. It's a simple, fun game where you can just turn your brain off and kill everything in sight. And there you have it, the final release for every Nintendo console. Yeah, there were a few games that were absolutely terrible, but there were also a good amount of games that I surprisingly really enjoyed. Though these games will probably never compare to the launch titles for each console, it's good to know that the death of some systems were sent off with a game that positively reflects the console itself. Let me know your opinions down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe so I can continue making videos like this for you. I'll catch you guys later. Deuces.